Today we're talking about how to write an argumentative body paragraph. The first thing you need to do is read the article. This is the same article that Mrs. Stewart had in her class for literature, and it's also the same article that we read in our class. This is the article about if teens should have cell phones. After you've read the article, the next thing you need to do is think about the question. So our question for this article is, should teens have cell phones? Now, even if you're in the middle, you can't decide which side you want to be on. You have to choose one side and stay with that side. Now, sometimes it's easier to choose the side that you don't agree with if most of your article is on that side. For instance, this article, most of the article talks about teens, the disadvantage of teens having cell phones. So the easiest position to be on in this article would be teens shouldn't have cell phones. Once I've chosen a side, the next thing I need to do is turn my question into a statement, and I also need to answer the question. And that becomes my topic sentence. So my topic sentence for this question would be, teens shouldn't have cell phones. After I've taken a position and I've made my topic sentence, my next job is to come up with a reason from one of my ideas of why kids shouldn't have cell phones. Now, the only stipulation is my reason needs to be able to be proved from the text. So a reason that I'm going to come up with is cell phones cause teens to have trouble in school. Now, after we came up with our reason, our next job is we need to go back to our article and see if we can find some information in our article to prove that cell phones cause teens to have trouble in school. So if we read our article a little bit, we'll find a spot down here that says one concern is that students might not learn correct grammar and spelling if most of the writing they do is made up of text messages. Now, my next job, I have two options. I can either quote this, in other words, I can take it word for word and put quotation marks around it, or I can paraphrase it. In other words, I can use the idea but put it in my own words. Now, as we talked about in class, it's better to paraphrase information because it shows that we understand it more. So most of our papers should be made up of paraphrasing. So this is a perfect instance where I'm going to paraphrase it. But before I even paraphrase it, I need to cite it. So I need to give my text or my article credit. There's two ways to cite a text. The first way is to use an article's title. The easier way is to use the article's author. So I'm going to try to look for the author of this article. Sometimes they're found up in the top of the page. This one's not, so I'm going to go to the last sentence. So this is the second page. I'm going to look all the way down at the bottom and see if I can find an author to this article. And there it is. It's Sarah Jane Brown. Now, we've talked about in class we can't use just Sarah because there's a lot of people with the first name Sarah, so that would not be very descriptive. But we can use the last name Brian. So every time I cite this text, I'm going to use the last name Brian. Okay, so I'm back to my outline, and I'm going to write Brian. And remember, outlines do not have to have complete sentences, as long as you remember to put them in a complete sentence when you write your paper. So, my job is now is I'm going back to my original sentence, and I need to figure out how can I put this sentence in my own words. So I'm going to say, Brian, and I'm going to put texting too much causes teens difficulty with learning correct grammar and spelling. Now I'm ready for reason 2. Again, reasons come from my own ideas, but they have to be able to be proved from the article. So my second reason why I don't think teens should have phones is it causes loss of sleep. And again, the next thing I need to do is I need to go back to my article and prove that phones cause a loss of sleep. So I'm skimming through my article, and I come across this section right up here that says, Dr. Dowdle says that it's common for teens to sleep to be interrupted by text. So again, my next job is I need to cite my text. So I'm going to put Brian so I remember where it came from. And I'm going to put teens often wake up at night to text. Now I'm ready for my closing sentence. My closing sentence, all it needs to do is say, kind of stay on the idea of my first sentence, but say it in a different way. So if we take a look at our topic sentence, it said, teens shouldn't have cell phones. So my closing sentence, I'm going to put something like, these are just a few reasons why teens shouldn't own a cell phone. My next job is to turn this into a paper, and this is pretty easy. All I have to do is copy this outline in order, and I will have a paper. Remember, we do have to make sure we have complete sentences, so every time that I didn't use a complete sentence on my outline, I need to go back and make sure that I have a complete sentence for my paper. So my first sentence is going to be, teens shouldn't have cell phones. Now I need to make sure I indent because it's the first sentence of my paragraph. Okay, my reason 1 is cell phones. And I'm going to make this into an even better sentence. I'm going to put teens shouldn't have cell phones because they can cause them to have trouble in school. My next job is I'm going to cite my author. Every time I use text evidence, I need to cite my author, so I'm going to put, according to Brian, texting too much causes teens to have difficulty learning grammar and spelling skills. Now I'm ready for my next reason, which is cell phones cause a loss of sleep. So I'm going to put furthermore, this is one of my transition words, furthermore, cell phones can cause a loss of sleep. And again, I'm ready to cite my text. So I'm going to put Brian. So I need to cite my text. I'm going to cite it in a different way. So instead of saying according to Brian, I'm going to put Brian writes. How teens, this is my evidence too here, so I need to review what I said. Teens often wake up throughout the night to text. So teens often wake up throughout the night to text. Okay, now the last thing I need is my closing sentence, which says these are just a few reasons why teens shouldn't own a cell phone.